Okay, go ahead and label at the top your name, the topic, which is fractions, decimals, and percents, and it is notes 9. Hopefully this looks familiar to you because we looked at it a little bit last year, and you should have just done your ExactPath assignment on it. So let's start with, what do we do if we have a fraction and we want to figure out the decimal or the percent? Well, to figure out the decimal is super easy. You can either get your fraction out of 100, or you can just put it in a calculator and divide. So when I put 3 divided by 5 in my calculator, I'm going to get 6/10, or 0.6. So all I did there was 3 divided by 5 into my calculator. Now, if we want to figure out the percent, all you have to do is move the decimal place 2 place values to the right. So that would be 1, 2, which means it would be 60. I have that little open space, so we have to fill that with a 0. 60%. Now, another way you can do this is by knowing that percent is always out of 100. So if you want to change from a decimal to a percent, you just multiply by 100. Multiplying by 100 is the same thing as moving the decimal to the right 2 places. Go ahead and write that down. So now if we work backwards and we're given the percentage, in this case it's 18%. If we want to find the decimal, now we just move to the left 2 places, or divide by 100. Same thing. Now, how do we write this decimal as a fraction? Well, you're always going to look at the very last number. In this case, it's 8. You need to see what place value that 8 is in. So here are the ones, here are the tenths, and here are the hundredths. Since it is in the hundredths place, the bottom of your fraction will be 100. And then we just write that number, which is 18. Now we do need to simplify. So on top and bottom, you can divide by 2, which gives us 9/50 as our final answer. Let's go ahead and do example number 1. So we're given the decimal, and again, this 8, which is our final number, is in our hundredths place. Oops, spelled that wrong. So it goes over 100 on our fraction. The number is 8. We don't really need the zeros in front. Again, we have to reduce or simplify, so we can divide by 4 on top and bottom to get 2/25. And for our percent, remember, you just multiply by 100 or move the decimal to the right 2 place values. So there's our percent. Go ahead and try number 2 on your own. So pause the video here and then play it to see if you get the right answers. All right, you should have gotten 24/100, which can simplify down to 6/25. And then also here is your decimal. All right, let's go on to number 3. So for number 3, let's do the decimal first. I am just going to put in my calculator 7 divided by 12. If this decimal was over 10 this fraction was over 10 or over 100, like 7/10 or 7/100, then I would be able to find the decimal without putting it in my calculator. But it's not, so that's why I'm doing this in my calculator. I get 0.5833 continuing. I have these little squiggly equal sign instead of the regular equal sign because it keeps going on forever. And now the percent, 1, 2 place values. All right, let's take a look at number 4 now. So they gave us the percent. Now we have to find the decimal and the fraction. So remember, you have to divide by 100 if you're going from percent to decimal, which also means just to move the decimal 2 place values to the left. So this time we get 0.045. And now we're going to take a look at our last number, which is 5. What place value is the 5 in? It is in the thousandths place value, which means that 1,000 will go on the bottom of our fraction. And 45 will go on top. Again, we must simplify. And there's your final answer. All right, let's take a look at number 5. So we can go ahead and put this decimal into a fraction by looking at our very last place value, which is 7, and that is in the tenths place. So our number 7 goes over 10. That's already simplified for us. Now, if we want to change that decimal to a percent, we move it over 2 place values to the right, which gives us 70%. That little space right there, you need to put a 0 when you change it to the percent. All right, so go ahead and try numbers 6 through 10 on your own. Pause the video here and then check your answers when you play the video again. Okay, here are the answers you should have gotten. And if you don't get all of these correct, make sure you double check what you did and ask for help if you got it wrong. All right, again, make sure you got all of those correct. If so, go ahead and move on to the back. So this is also a review from last year. We're going to go over adding and subtracting decimals, and then also multiplying and dividing decimals. So let's underline the important things. When you add and subtract, you need to line up the decimals. So you line up the decimals and line up all the place values. So the ones go with the ones, the tenths go with the tenths, and so on. It says add a placeholder if necessary. That just means put a 0 in if there is a blank space in the equation. So let's go ahead and just look at number 11 right now. This is an addition problem, so you will line up the decimals. What that means is I will do 1 9/10 plus 6 82/100. Now we have this space right here, so I'm just going to fill it with a 0 or the placeholder that they were talking about. My decimals and all my place values are lined up. My decimal is just going to be brought straight down, right? So there's the decimal in my answer. And then now I can just add like I normally would, right? We have 0 plus 2. We have 9 plus 8. We carry the 1. 1 plus 1 plus 6. So that is your final answer. Go ahead and pause the video here to do 12, 13, and 14 on your own. Okay, you should have already paused the video, and then you should have come up with these answers. And if you did not, then go ahead and do them again. So check your work and see what you got wrong. All right, multiplying and dividing decimals. Here, you do not need to line up the decimal for multiplication, okay? You still will set up the problem like you do regular multiplication. So, like right here, we have 5.27 times 9, just like you would if there was no decimal there. Now, it says move the decimal in your answer the same number of places as the sum of the number of decimal places in the problem. That sounds confusing, but it's actually super simple. I'm going to actually pick number 16 to show you. So I'm going to set it up like this. Okay. I'm just going to ignore the decimals for now. So pretend they're not even there. We have 4 times 2, which is 8. 4 times 6, which is 24. Don't forget, add that 0 before you go to the next step. 1 times 2 is 2. 1 times 6 is 6. Now, just like normal, you add them together. Now, we are not done. We need to figure out where to put the decimal in our final answer. So we need to look at how many place values over the decimal is in our original problem. So we start over here at the end. It went 1 place value here. It also went 1 place value here. So here's where you take the sum, right? So I'm adding 1 plus 1 gives me 2, which means our decimal is going to be placed 2 place values over in our answer. 1, 2. So my final answer is right here. So go ahead and pause the video and try number 15 on your own. Okay, you should have done number 15 on your own, and you should have gotten a final answer of 47 43/100. As you can see, your decimal was moved over 2 place values here, but none right here. So our answer, or our sum, is still 2. So in our answer, our decimal was moved over 2 place values. Now for the hardest ones, 17 and 18. Okay, you need to set it up like a regular long division problem. I'm going to do number 18 over here on this side, so I have lots of room. Okay, so we have 3 divided by 0 6/10. You cannot have a decimal on the outside. So we have to move the decimal over so that we don't have it anymore, which means it's just at the very end. So to get rid of this decimal, I have to move it over just 1 place value. Whatever you do to the inside or the outside, you also have to do to the inside. Just like fractions, when you do something to the top, you have to do the same thing to the bottom. This is the same concept. So inside we have the number 3. If our decimal was there, it would be right there, right at the end of the number. Since I moved my decimal over one place value on the outside, I have to do that same thing on the inside. Okay, now it looks super messy, so I'm going to rewrite it. I now have 6 and 30, right? My decimals are over here on the end, which means I don't really need to write them. So now we are going to see how many times 6 goes into 3, none. How many times does 6 go into 30? 5 times. 6 times 5 is 30. We subtract, no remainder, so our final answer is, 5. All right, now go ahead and pause and do number 17 on your own. Okay, you should have paused the video and done number 17 on your own. You should have gotten an answer of 2 and 35 hundredths. If you got that wrong, let's go through step by step how to do this one. Now we didn't go over where the decimal goes in our answer because we didn't end up having a decimal number 18. So your decimal just goes straight up. We did not have to move the decimal at all because we don't have a decimal on the outside. It's just 2. So we don't have to worry about moving it. So now 4.7 stays 4.7 and our decimal is straight up in our answer. So it's going to go right here. So how many times does 2 go into 4? Without going over, that's 2 times. 2 times 2 is 4. We get 0. Now we bring down our 7. How many times does 2 go into 7 without going over? That would be 3 times. 2 times 3 is 6. If we subtract, we get 1. No, usually you guys would stop here and put that there's a remainder of 1. When you're working with decimals, we are not going to do that. Okay, so if you didn't get this far in your problem, that is because now you need to add a 0 on top and bring that down also. So now you have 10. How many times does 2 go into 10 without going over? 5 times. 2 times 10, or 2 times 5 is 10. We subtract and get 0. So that's how you get your final answer. So anytime you have a remainder, when you're working with decimals, you need to add a 0 and bring it down. And you keep doing that until you don't have any remainders left. So when you finally subtract and get 0 down here at the bottom.